Can you bring us up to date on the FISA rule and when it's expected to be put to a vote? Dan Crenshaw being very explicit today about how it's got to pass. What do you say?
Well, it does look a lot more optimistic for those Republicans who do want to see it reauthorized with fewer of the strings that were initially under discussion. And that vote could happen as early as this morning. I mean, as early as a half hour from now, that could start to move forward. There were 19 Republicans who voted against the rule, sort of throwing a wrench into the procedural process of even moving forward with debate on this FISA bill. And so to appease them, the change was made in the Rules Committee last night to make this FISA reauthorization for 2 years instead of the usual 5 years. So sort of locking in the changes for the shorter period of time seems to be enough to sway some of those Republicans. And so the hope is that now the bill, at least the procedural steps to move the bill forward, can advance.
Now, Sarah, the hard left, the squad hates FISA, and the Freedom Caucus has concerns about FISA. But as Andy McCarthy explained in the McCarthy Report yesterday, we cannot be blind, right? If we don't have FISA Section 2, we are not watching the terrorists in the world to the extent that we can. I do not understand anyone opposing this.
Well, it's one of those interesting issues that's created a really fascinating bipartisan coalition, right, of the hard left and the hard right. And it's rare you see an issue that cuts across ideological lines the way the Section 702 does. And the main concern from those Republican hardliners, which it appears are not going to get this demand, but what they wanted was a warrant requirement for if law enforcement was going to search those databases of the communications of Americans that do get swept up with foreigners, because there have been issues of abuse from law enforcement officers who have pretty free reign to just conduct searches whenever they feel like it of American data and communications, and they don't need a warrant if an American happens to have been communicating with the target of foreign surveillance overseas. So that warrant requirement is something that caused a lot of consternation among conservatives after Speaker Johnson appeared to flip-flop on it. It doesn't look like it's going to make it into that final FISA version.
Interesting, Sarah. I listened to the speaker. I don't think he flip-flopped. I think what he said is, I had no idea, which is actually what I say to people who've never had the sensitive compartment information clearance, that, even 40 years ago when I had it, it made my eyes roll back in my head when you see how many bad guys and gals are in the United States or want to come to the United States or communing with people in the United States. I think he got the briefing, and I wish we gave that briefing to everyone, but apparently we can't.
Well, that's true. He did say that he received that briefing when he became Speaker of the House. That changed his mind. It's, the conservative hardliners in the conference still have sort of viewed it as a flip-flop, and it's added to their skepticism of Johnson, even though Johnson is in a truly unwinnable position on this fight and most of the other fights. But, to his credit, I think it does look like he is going to be able to at least clear this first hurdle with the bill without having to make a concession on that warrant piece. And he's also looking like he's going to allow a vote on a Warren Davidson amendment on this separate question of whether law enforcement can purchase third-party caches of data.
Now, the chairman of the Knucklehead Caucus, Matt Gaetz, is back in the news because apparently the allegation that he had intimate relations with a minor is still out there. What is the status of that?
That had been dormant for a while, and I think it resurfaced when Kevin McCarthy brought it up and sort of blamed, now that he's able to speak freely, he's already lost the job, blames Matt Gaetz's concern about some sort of ethics committee investigation into that, and that's why Matt Gaetz rose up against McCarthy. I think that, the way that the criminal investigation into Matt Gaetz was handled defanged a lot of these allegations, right? Because it emerged that he was under investigation that appeared to be a product of leaks. That investigation was closed without finding anything. There was a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And, you're right, that those allegations sort of faded into the background because that seems to have been so mishandled. But that does not appear to be moving anywhere at the moment.
But it resurfaced this week, and I had no idea. I was traveling to Ohio, to Michigan. I had no idea where it came from, and it resurfaced this week. I thought maybe the ethics committee had brought something forward. Apparently not.
Sarah brought it up, yeah.
Let me ask you finally, Has anyone seconded Marjorie Taylor Greene's effort to oust Speaker Johnson? Because that would truly be a demonstration of an ironclad commitment to being dumb.
It does not appear that has any momentum at the moment, and even Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be softened a little bit after meeting with him. So I do think that, she sort of stands alone. Even the Matt Gaetzes of the world don't appear to have an appetite for that. Matt Gaetz, just incidentally, is someone who voted against the FISA rule, and because of the changes that were made last night, seems poised to vote for it today.
All right, the Knucklehead Caucus, there's no predicting it, but they've got their counterpart on the left.